You're in the 06010.
Hello and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. It is Wednesday, September 6th. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined by Mike, Clay, and Field. Yates. Today's show is presented by Geico. Switch to Geico, see all the ways that you could save. Guys, I had 2 fantasy drafts last night at the same time. I got to tell you, they might have been the 2 worst drafts I've had all draft season.
Guaranteed titles then.
That's how it's going to work. That's how it works.
Because see what happens is we get so excited for all these like young prospects and the next big thing. And then when we're normally drafting, we try to reach for them. We want to get them, right? We did that in the focus draft, right?
We did.
Jackson kept taking all them guys, and you guys were furious about it.
I hated Jackson.
Yeah, you were really mad about that. But what happens is sometimes everyone else is grabbing those guys, and you're just like, all right, I'll take Chris Godwin, or I'll take Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you got a league championship
Roster.
I feel like you kind of buried the lead today.
Uh-oh.
Does anybody else find it weird? Like, okay, football season, we're all excited about it. It is a long off season, which to me would suggest that Mike would have had plenty of time over the past 7 months to go do things that are not work. And yet for the past 10 days, have we seen you on the show once?
Not once.
Like, what was it like?
I've been here for a while.
Was it nice to be on the beach? Was that nice? Did you consider asking Daniel and I if we wanted to join?
Honestly, since I was off for so long, I thought like the show would be canceled since I wasn't here.
Wow.
Like,
it came perilously close to being canceled. So congratulations to
but I'm
you
back now. I'm here to
on
save the
almost
day.
summarizing the show.
I'm back. I brought my herd shirt. I wasn't here Friday, so I couldn't wear my college shirt. Celebrate college. So
Oh, wait. It's a different
Oh, that's right. You went to Marshall. That's right. You went.
I did not go to Marshall, but I'm a big Chad Pennington fan. So they don't actually make Kutztown shirts for some reason.
They do.
Like, where do we get these from? Who are we promoting here?
Is that homage?
Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall, I guess.
That's
So
what it is. Okay.
they didn't have Kutztown merchandise for some reason, which is weird because, I mean, Jerome Cap's kind of putting them on the map right now.
He has been. Plus, Craig Reynolds re-signed to the Lions 53-man roster recently.
Right.
Andre Reed forever.
Yeah,
Always.
exactly. So that was something else. I thought you were going to say the lead was that UFOs exist.
No, we've known that for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, where have you been for the
I know,
past 20 years?
but now it's Aaron Rodgers approved. Like Aaron Rodgers has on last night on Hard Knocks talked that he saw one. Him and a group of people saw one. I don't know why he didn't make a big deal of it back then. Or why there's any footage of it, but he saw one.
Can we acknowledge that Aaron Rodgers, when his football days are over, and usually players, once they're past their playing days, can be a little more like unrefined. They can be their more authentic self, right? Aaron Rodgers is going to have a fascinating post-playing career in terms of like the stuff that we learn about him and like the media appearances that he makes or does not make. Can't wait for that. Well, I can wait for that because I want him to continue to play and play at a high level.
I think he said it was like his first time in New York after, he was in California, right? And then he was in Green Bay for all that time. Do you think he just like got to New York the first time and just saw like a tall building?
Right. It was just like there it is.
UFO.
Gotta be it.
UFO. That's the only thing that could be.
Yes.
That's what happened. I think that's
so good. All right, we got a lot of stuff we're going to dive into on the show today. A bunch of news we're going to get into. Plus, we're talking week 1 rankings.
Heyo!
Finally, we're talking how week 1 is going to impact us as fantasy managers. Really excited about that. Going to dive into all the positions. But first and foremost, biggest piece of news. We got done with the show yesterday, and as always happens, news broke. We got news that Travis Kelce unfortunately hyperextended his knee at practice yesterday. It looks like his ACL is intact. We love to hear that. That's always a positive thing. We're waiting to get a little bit more news today. Field, there's a couple of questions here.
Okay.
One, there are still people that are drafting. I know we're talking about week 1, but if you are drafting right now, you got a draft tonight or you're drafting tomorrow before the game. How would you change your approach, if at all, to Travis Kelce with this news, knowing we haven't had the update we're looking for yet?
Oh, you're definitely changing your approach. Now, I think there's a chance that by the time people draft tonight, and let's call the start of draft tonight 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep, that's fair.
Pick an hour. Let's call it 7 p.m. Eastern time. The Chiefs will have already submitted their week 1 game status report, which will tell us whether he's off the injury report and going to play, which seems extremely far-fetched. Will he be questionable? Will he be doubtful? I think there's a chance that he could be listed as doubtful for tomorrow night, even though his brother, Jason, did go on the radio this morning in Philadelphia and say, like, I think there is a chance that Travis plays. Basically, it sounds like he's got swelling and a bone bruise. That swelling could go down in an hour. It could go down over the course of a week or two. So it doesn't seem like Travis Kelce is bound to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. But if he misses the first 1 to 2 weeks of the season, it's not that I am moving down Travis Kelce from tight end 1 for the year. It's that I'm moving him down from like the 5th overall player on your big board to maybe like 13th, 14th, 15th,
that
because
far?
maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends probably on league size, right? I've only got one league draft left. It's a 16-team league tonight. And for me, I can't justify using my first-round pick on Travis Kelce if we find out by later on today that he is unlikely to play tomorrow night, because every week counts so much in a 16-team league. Now, if you're in a 10-team league, then I think it maybe is justifiable if you're at the back end of round one. Maybe he's more like player 9 or 10, but there is definitely a discount, because if we go into tomorrow night with uncertainty surrounding his status, the door is then also open for week 2 being an issue for Travis Kelce.
I tend to agree. Move him down a couple spots in my rankings, maybe, but that's it. I mean, he's still the best tight end by far. Yep. We don't expect this to be more than a one-game injury. And look, what they play 17 games now? 16 games of Travis Kelce instead of 17.
It's still pretty good.
It's still going to pay off a top 5.
If you use his numbers from last year, which can be a little faulty, but if you were to just go back to last season and take away Travis Kelce's per game average for 5 full games played, he still would have been tight end 1 by a fairly reasonable margin over every other player at the position. It's not that he is no longer the best tight end in fantasy. It's that if you are choosing between Travis Kelce and, let's say, Stefon Diggs or Devontae Adams in the first round, and you're playing in a deeper league and you need the security of 17 weeks on paper of that player, you can go that way as opposed to Kelce in round 1.
Yeah, I think if you took away his 3 best games last year, he'd probably still be number 1. Yes. Right? It's probably all around 25, 30 points.
Yeah.
Probably still be the top scoring tight end.
It was over 100 points difference between he and TJ Hawkinson last season.
Travis Kelce has not missed a game due to injury since his rookie season in 2013. The consistency is unreal.
It's off the charts. And a reminder that, like, at the beginning of his career, he has this major knee injury after like 1 game played, which he had 0 catches. And people are wondering, like, what is this player ever going to become in the NFL? Can he even stay healthy? Here we are a decade later, and he's one of the most dominant players ever at the position. So you're looking at Daniel.
He missed a game in 2021. What was that?
He did. It was COVID-19.
It was COVID. Okay. All right.
Was it COVID, or was it that end of the season they were clinched?
That would have been it was week 16 of 2021.
So
everyone else played. So
I can tell you exactly what it was.
I was going to get into this once we got into kind of like what to expect if he's out sort of analysis.
He's missed 3 games since 2014, twice resting the final week of the season in 2017 and 2020, and he missed a week 16 game in 2021 because of COVID-19. So
okay.
So here's my question then.
Let's talk about the other part of
this. So now let's say you've already drafted.
Yeah.
You got Travis Kelce on his roster. You find out that Travis Kelce is not going to play. We know what to do there. You're going to throw him on IR. You're going to go out. You're going to find another tight end, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that he does play. Let's say that the Chiefs say Travis Kelce is going to be out there week 1. You just used a 5th overall pick on this guy.
Start him.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think you need to think that through, right?
Yeah, it's just if he's there, he's there.
Even if he plays 50% of his usual snaps, they're probably pass routes.
Right.
He's probably still going to see 6 to 8 targets.
Probably going to
score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Good chance to score a touchdown.
If he plays, you play him.
There's no one else that you're looking at.
No. I'd still rank him first, I think.
I think so too.
Put him behind.
It's a better bet to have a touchdown than him.
And even like Mark Andrews, not fully healthy, George Kittle, like those guys that not
even in a second.
Kelce, if he's active, you start him.
I think we should ask this question then. If he's out, is the best option that you're looking towards somebody on the Chiefs, or is it somebody else on waivers? Because there are a number of tight ends that will be on waivers for week 1 because most people are only carrying 1 on their roster. And Noah Gray is probably the name you need to know amongst the Chiefs' backup tight ends who will probably play, I'll call it a starter role. I would tend to think, though, that there are other players, and Gray could certainly score a touchdown because it's Patrick Mahomes and it's the Chiefs. But there are other players that I think are probably available on waivers that might have a better case for week 1.
Yeah, I'll probably rank Gray as a mid to back end tight end 2.
Yeah.
So you could probably do better unless you're in one of those 16-team leagues.
Yep.
I look back at that game, week 16, 2021, Chiefs tight ends, and it's the same depth chart. It was Kelce, Gray, and Blake Bell. It's the same situation right now. Bell actually left and came back to the team since then. Noah Gray played 72% of the snaps, only had 2 targets.
Yeah.
Blake Bell played 37%, had 1 target. They just didn't really, Patrick Mahomes didn't really throw it to them. And if you're wondering, the other part of this is, how much do we downgrade this offense? Should we be concerned? Well, when Kelce was out in that game, big problems for that Chiefs offense against a really good Steelers defense. They only won 36-10.
Wow.
So rough one at the office for sure. Big Byron Pringle.
So still starting Patrick Mahomes.
We're still fine with all this.
I tweeted this yesterday.
We're not moving Mahomes at all here.
I know. I tweeted this yesterday, and it was great. Like, I like when the majority of people get to the joke, and then like the 20% who don't chime in a lot. And so what I said yesterday on Twitter, they can't.
They incessantly.
Said if Travis Kelce is out on Thursday, the Chiefs' top pass catchers will be likely some order of Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Noah Gray, and Jerick McKinnon. Given the lack of top-tier pass catchers, Patrick Mahomes is now projected for only 337 yards and 2 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns, excuse me. And people, dude. Yeah, way to go out the limb, man. The Patrick Mahomes is still sweet, bro. I'm like, thank you for that, by the way.
For the record, I really like Fields, like California surfer voice.
I don't know why I chose that voice of all the things to choose.
Pretty good, though.
It reminded me of the Californians on SNL.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
we got to go here. Anything else on the Travis Kelce thing before we move on? Because once we wrap this up, I want to get to something that I will not miss whatsoever once the football season begins. But anything else on Travis Kelce before we move on?
Nope, I think we're good.
I think
if he
I'm
plays,
good.
start him. If he doesn't,
it's Daniel Dopp. Daniel talked about this a while ago. Daniel jinxed Travis Kelce. You had made that one comment, like whatever it was, a week ago.
I did.
And there are some, not all, but some who are saying that maybe you need to be banned from the show.
I've heard that.
However long Travis Kelce is out, you're not allowed on the show.
I thought about that after this happened, and I was like, dang it, I feel very responsible talking about how he's been so healthy over his career, which is so unreal. Like, that's been one of the things. I am hopeful, regardless of the fact that they're playing the Lions, and I'm hoping for a Lions victory week 1. Fantasy in the game is just more fun when Travis Kelce's a part of it. I want the guy to be healthy and to be out there on the field because it's just so much more fun with that. So I feel bad. If I did any of this, I want to reverse all my mojo, Field. I want to take it all back. I'm sorry about it.
See him, he's trying to be slick right now. Like, the game is better when Travis Kelce is on the field, except for the fact that the Lions are playing on Thursday.
Guess what? 1-0 is 1-0. That's all I'm saying.
Like, come on.
All right, let's move ahead. We're going to talk about a couple more injuries real quickly. Cooper Kupp.
Wait, hold on. What was your thing?
I think that was
your thing.
I thought that was the thing.
My one thing that I will absolutely not miss once the season begins. And if there are people that are guilty of this that are listening to this show, I don't feel bad at all. August is the month, more so than any other month of the entire year.
Yep.
Where I hear from people that I literally haven't heard from since the prior August. I just got one of these texts. Field, man, it's been so long. I hope you and your family are doing well. Your kids are adorable. Seems like all is well. By the way, I just have one fantasy question. I checked my last text from them. Hey, Field, hope all is well. You're doing well. Family should be great. Hope summer's great.
That's so good.
I just have one fantasy question. And I'm like, we don't talk for 12 months. Do not come ask me for your one fantasy question in August. Listen to the podcast. Check the rankings. I don't know. Go tweet at Mike and Daniel. Maybe they're nicer than I am. It never fails every year. It's like, and I'm not talking, it's one thing if it's like a close friend of mine who's got, 3 kids and, works a full-time job, but we don't talk that often, but we stay in touch in some way, shape, or form. I'm talking about people that I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't have your number saved.
I really can't believe Fields throwing me into the bus like this in front of national audience. It's terrible.
Well, all right. So what you need to do, if you're one of those people and you're watching, so like in week 4, be like, just check in on Field, ask him a sit-start question.
That's right.
Just communicate more.
That's
often.
it.
That's what we're looking for.
A little more communication.
I do this. Like, I feel like I do the inverse of this. Like, I know that like I can't go to sources only when I need something from them. So there are times where I'll just throw like a random softball at them, just like, hey, great win yesterday or something. Meanwhile, it's like, a source at Alabama after they beat like East Directional State University 94-12. And you're like, great win, like program building win, just like huge for recruiting. Yeah. Anyways, I digress.
Exposing himself right now?
Yes.
You're just basically saying that's all fake. Like I'm fake. I'm just texting these guys so they give me info when the time comes.
No, it's just, you can't only ask them for info. That's the whole point. It's a give and take. It's called a relationship. You really care
about these people.
Love is give and take. That's
right. Love is give and take. That's it. All right, let's move ahead. We'll talk about Cooper Kupp now.
But you guys get that too, just for the record.
100% get that.
Oh my God, it's hilarious though.
Yeah, Matthew texted me the other day asking me a bunch of draft stuff. It was tough. All right, so Cooper Kupp. Obviously, Cooper Kupp has been dealing with his hamstring issue, right? We've been waiting to be able to find out a little bit more. When are we going to know whether he can play week 1 or not? Field, it kind of gets the sense.
We have no updates since yesterday.
There's no updates.
Yeah.
I still get the sense that like we're trending in that direction, though. If you're a fantasy manager, I'm at least making preparations to potentially not be without Cooper.
I'm not taking Cooper Kupp. Maybe this would be a little bit different depending on league size, but like no sooner than pick 20 for Cooper Kupp with me, and it might be later than that. Every day that goes by with less. Without certainty, moves him further and further down my board.
Yep, I'm with you. I've done a couple drafts the past few days too. late flyer on Van Jefferson. Maybe could be a short-term flex option. He was top 50 in points per game last year. And you think about, especially in deeper leagues, if you start 3 receivers in a flex, that's 48 players. Yeah. And if Kupp's out, you could be talking about him as, if he had 7 targets in week 1 and was wide receiver 21 in fantasy points, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So he is a viable fill-in for Kupp. I mean, you're not in great spot if that happens, but you need somebody, and he's not the worst option. Also, Tyler Higbee, speaking of if there's no Kelce, if you're in a shallow league and Higbee's on waivers, that's a guy.
I was just going to say that if there was one guy that I wanted to suggest, it would be Tyler Higbee. He's only available in 17% of leagues.
Oh, really?
So he's rostered in a lot of places.
A big point of emphasis for the show this year, at least in my estimation, is I'm not going to be looking for players only available in like 50% or more of leagues. That's one piece of feedback that I seem to get pretty frequently. It's like you're talking about a guy who's available in 60% of leagues. Like, I'm in a highly competitive league.
He's not.
I don't care about those players. I'm talking about players that are maybe like 30% available. So mental note, this is my pledge to the audience that like we're going to try to look for the players that might be available in fewer leagues than more leagues, just because we know that a big part of our audience is a little bit more hardcore.
Like Sean Tucker, available in 99%.
I saw you got some feedback this morning from the masses.
People are mad about that.
Not efficient.
Why are they mad about you giving out a player that's not being drafted that like might do something?
Well, they were mad because I said
he was not
his collegiate efficiency wasn't great, and
that's just the truth.
32 teams seem to agree. He went undrafted. I mean,
injury concern was a part of it.
Yeah,
however,
still, he wasn't.
You haven't acknowledged this. Have you baked this into your projections? He is elite on Twitter.
Is that right?
Elite.
Oh, he might be coming for
me. Our producer, Jackson Agello.
Bucks running backs are going to be coming for me.
Yes, they are.
No, good point. Have you checked your Twitter DMs recently?
You might want to shut it down.
Maybe that's one of his burners. The guy's coming out here his burner accounts.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, look, I said, like, you should be taking him late in the draft, and I'm just getting trounced for, like, that I'm a hater or something. I mean,
you should do what the Bucks wouldn't even do. Use a draft pick on Sean Tucker.
Oh, there you go. I'll tell you what, 16-team league, would you take a shot on a guy like Sean Tucker?
I'm in the Worm League, 16-team leagues. I'm telling you.
Shot on anybody.
Marshawn Lynch will be drafted tonight. I promise you. Like, I promise you, everybody will be taken tonight. It's ridiculous.
All right, we got one last bit of news here, and that is George Kittle dealing with an adductor injury.
Yeah. Don't know what an adductor is. I'm not going to lie to you.
I was hoping Stefania was going to be here because I don't think Mike knows what it is either.
You do not have
a body
adductor.
part. It is a body part.
Yes, but it puts him in peril for week 1.
It does.
And for the 49ers, it just feels like every year we're doing this, right? It's week 1, and it's like, which star player is iffy to be available?
It was him last year.
It was him last year. He missed the first 2 weeks. And, George Kittle, the problem, it's not ideal when you have a player who's very, very talented who's unavailable. The 49ers will still be fine. They're a very talented and deep offense.
They're pretty good.
But when we're talking about potentially 2 of the top tight ends being out, and we already acknowledged it's hard to find replacements in the first place, you're going to have some competition. So if you are the Travis Kelce manager or the George Kittle manager right now, make the move. Like, drop the end of bench player right now before we get any further updates on Kittle or Kelce, because if the person who has the other tight end is being patient, they're going to all of a sudden become competition. Not that I like to be the guy that always just groans about your own league, but have you guys noticed that in our Dynasty League, our 12-team Dynasty League, my 2 tight ends are Kittle and Kelce?
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's we got 3 flex spots, so it's not uncommon for you to play 2 tight ends.
That's
I think I might have Mark Bavaro in the flex spot this weekend if those guys aren't available.
Yeah, and also, much like Kansas City, not really going to grab any other Niners tight ends. Last year in those 2 games you talked about, weeks 1 and 2, 7 total targets between all of their tight ends.
Yes.
Yeah, Ross Dwelly, Charlie Warner, Latu's on IR.
Yeah, he's Latu.
Brandon Willis was a 7th rounder.
What do they do with these 3rd-round picks in San Francisco? It's so they have that. They make so many good picks in the non-first round, and then they have so many 3rd-round picks that you're just like, wait, what? Jake Moody and Cameron Latu and
Tyrion Davis-Price last year.
Yeah,
was a 3rd rounder. Yeah.
You're talking about potentially dropping a guy at the end of your bench. I was thinking that same thing. If you have gone through drafts right now and you didn't grab a kicker, or you grabbed a kicker, but like, who cares? It's a kicker. If you've got Travis Kelce or George Kittle, drop that kicker. Go grab somebody else before someone else get a chance to be able to grab someone else.
I do that all the time.
All the time.
I know that's a
ton of my teams
do.
don't even have kickers right now. I just
you don't even need injuries for that to happen. You're just like, I want to go out and potentially find another player.
That's the first thing I do on waiver week. I just drop the kicker, or that's the first drop. I'd rather have a insurance running back sitting there on my bench all week in case
you don't get nervous about the karma there.
No.
Like that the kicker that you dropped is going to go Brett Maher when he had like 7 field goals and 6 of them were over 50 yards? No.
Because it's just as likely that the guy I end up picking up will do the same thing.
Does anybody else think that Mike Clay is just way too like reasonable sometimes?
Yeah, karma's made up.
I don't think he's reasonable. I think he hates everybody's favorite team. I think it's one or the other.
That part is true.
And Bucks running backs.
Yes. And the Eagles especially. Yes.
All right, we're going to come back
against the Eagles.
We got a lot of week one's ranking talk in front of us. But fun. First, Field, let's talk about Geico.
Geico asks, how would you love a chance to save some money on insurance?
Mike would.
Of course you guys would. And when it comes to great rates on insurance, Geico can help, like with insurance for your car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and RV. Even help with homeowners or renters coverage, plus add an easy-to-use mobile app available 24-hour roadside assistance and more. And Geico is an easy choice. Switch today and see all the ways you could save. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com or contact your local agent today.
With the NFL season right around the corner, nonstop football action is in sight, and you can get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and score $200 in bonus bets instantly. Nobody's missing out in the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Life is more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app before kickoff. Use code FFF to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL bet only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code FFF. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit 100gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Field, did I see that you were on Pardon My Take?
I was, yes. That was the thing that I mentioned last week that you'd find out by the beginning of this week. So go check out Pardon My Take. You probably already have.
I was looking on Twitter. I got Mike blocked, so I didn't see any of this stuff that you did. Yeah. But I saw that you would it was exciting, man.
You know what?
Week one, diving in. It's just,
these guys, listen, I don't want to come across as just trying to be I don't know. I'm not trying to be a butt kisser here, but what they have accomplished and what they do and the level that they bring every single show is unparalleled. They're the best for a reason. It was great being on there, talking shop with them. And if you want to get ready for the football season, check out the show from yesterday, because they pushed by 1 day with the Labor Day on Monday. So great opportunity. And love hearing those guys talk football.
Heck
Always
yeah.
fun.
Field J's, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp here on Fantasy Focus, talking week one rankings. Let's dive in with the quarterbacks.
Can I make one comment before we start?
You can make
I do
as many.
think it's important at the beginning of the season that I think, at least this is my take on certain players, is when I'm looking at my lineup as it pertains to lineup decisions, there are certain players that I made an investment in, and I'm excluding kickers and defense in this conversation, where they're going to be in my week one lineup, and I'm going to ride the wave at the beginning of the season no matter what. I don't want people to interpret our week one rankings discussions is an overthinking process. It's just, there are guys that even if we're a little down on them this week compared to where we normally would be, you're still going to play them because you've invested in them pretty reasonably or pretty heavily. I just want to make that clear from the jump that we may have some questions, but we may also still very well be playing those players in week one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the best example of that is a guy we're about to talk about here shortly in quarterbacks, Justin Herbert. Yep. So we'll get to that in a second, but I agree with you, and I'll make that case further once we get to him.
Let's do it.
All right. So
he was just a player I had in mind, so
that's funny.
My average mind thinks with Mike's great mind every once in a while.
That's funny. I was literally, and I'm not trying to just join the bandwagon. That's how I was going to lead into it. Is sometimes our season-long rankings are different than our weekly rankings. Yeah, but you know what, guys? We're all on the same page here. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. Let's rip through this.
Biggest offseason storyline of the season. What's going on?
He saw that. He saw that UFO.
Right on your shirt. Specific UFO.
I thought you wore that
from
because
Lake
of
St.
that,
Daniel.
actually.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, biggest offseason story, moving from the Green Bay Packers to the New York Jets. We've been waiting to see what he looks like. A lot of hype, especially with Hard Knocks. Guess what? He plays on Monday Night Football. Yep. Mike, are you starting Aaron Rodgers week one, Monday night against the Bills?
Nope. I'm very concerned that, look, if you watch Hard Knocks any year, it's hard not to be hyped for the team.
Of course.
And oftentimes I'm like, man, am I too low on the Jets or am I too low on the line? And I'm like, you know what? All 32 teams are doing this right now. Right. The coach is firing up all 32 teams. All the players are motivated. All teams, you have to always remind yourself of that. But look, they're playing the Bills.
Yeah.
They're playing. Aaron Rodgers is coming off a season that was rough. Yep. He had no 20-plus fantasy point games. We've been through this all off season. not going to add a lot with his legs, and he's playing one of the best defenses. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit about defenses throughout today.
Yep.
We're not going to get too caught up. We don't have any 2023 data. You don't want to use past years too strongly with analysis, but it is Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
It is a really good Bills defense. They've been no worse than third in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks 4 of the last 5 seasons, including the last 2. They've had a lot of injuries during that, including no Tre'Davious White most of last season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was ever 100%. He's back and ready to roll. It's a really tough matchup, no matter which way you look at it. Rodgers was not drafted to be a starter in most leagues.
Right.
I'm not going to upgrade him to be a starter just because there's good vibes in New York against this really tough matchup.
That's the point that I think is important to make, is that I don't think a lot of people in a 10-team league were walking away with Aaron Rodgers as their only quarterback or as their unquestioned starting quarterback. So there are other ways to pivot this week if you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster. And if you do, it's most likely that he's your quarterback too, or you're playing in a really deep league, in which in a 16-team league, as quarterback 18, fine. Borderline starter, but maybe there is a streaming option, perhaps the player that we'll talk about next, who could be a better option for you.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, Geno Smith last year was drafted as quarterback 33, finishes QB 5.
All right, we got to play a game here, though.
All right, let's go ahead.
Okay, actually, no, do a little more, and then I'll start the game.
Mike, I want to ask you this question. How many quarterbacks have not had a single top 10 season until they were 30 years old within their NFL career? And then how do we project that forward to know what they're going to do that following season? Geno literally broke the mold as a fantasy quarterback last year. Now we're trying to project ahead to figure out, is he going to do it again, or was that more of an aberration?
Comeback player of the year. He came back from never having been a top 10 quarterback.
Yes.
From being a draft bust. Is that what we call it? He came back from that. It really was a long time, too. I mean, he played a handful of snaps prior to, what was it, 2021. He had a couple games subbing in for Russell Wilson. Before that, he had 20 pass attempts over 6 seasons.
Remember the Seahawks were the first team to only carry 2 quarterbacks for a while because it was Russ never gets hurt.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go with the economic play at backup quarterback. They just kept re-signing Geno Smith to basically the same contract every year.
Turns out that was a good idea.
Yeah, it worked out. I mean, it worked out for everybody. Here's the game we're going to play, though, here, because the season-long outlook is part of it, but the week 1 outlook is the most important part here. Let's play a little game here.
Yep.
Okay. Name a Rams defensive player. Go, Mike, you're first.
Aaron Donald.
Okay, Daniel.
Crap.
I was going to
Akello Witherspoon?
Yeah,
Witherspoon's a good one. Yeah,
he's probably going to be their top corner they just signed.
Signed from the Steelers offseason. You got any more, Mike?
Yeah, John Johnson.
David Long? No, he's in
the Dolphins now. Yeah. Okay, that's the point, though. And I'm not trying to this is not trying to be embarrassing to anybody. It's just the fact that Mike has said it 10,000 times this offseason. It's the worst defense he's evaluated, despite the fact that they have a player who will probably go down as one of the 3 greatest defensive players of all time in Aaron Donald.
Yeah,
that's wild.
They have. I was looking at this last night because I actually listed some guys I was going to mention. They're going to play substantial snaps in this game, who most people would not have heard of. But one of my takeaways looking at their 53 is if you look at all their defensive players, they have 1 defensive player drafted in the first or second round on their defensive depth chart.
That's obviously Donald.
It's Aaron Donald. 1.
Everybody else,
and it's
is
not all draft pedigree.
Player.
It's not all about that. But it's not like there's a bunch of standouts otherwise, right? Ernest Jones is probably the next best. John Johnson has played well and with Sean McVay, but he hasn't.
1 year, $1 million contract at the end of the entire season unsigned.
It is the worst defense I've seen on paper in a long time going into week 1. So it's going to be a heck of a coaching job for McVay to get this team to win games this year.
If it's the worst defense right now in week 1, is this a defense that you probably didn't draft Geno Smith as a starter, or if you did, you just punted on the quarterback position. But if you did, you're starting him this week against the Rams, right?
Did you guys see more teams drafting 2 quarterbacks this year than normal?
Yes, in fantasy.
At least I did in fantasy, and I think as a result of that, there are a lot of people that do have Geno on their roster. So I've got him as quarterback 8 this week, Mike.
Yep, I'm at 7, and it's gonna be a good DFS play. Yep. He's a great streamer. I think we're gonna be picking on this Rams defense all year. Maybe they'll surprise me. They'll play a lot of cover 2 and just keep everything in front of them, and they won't be a team that we could pick on as well as we thought. For example, last year, Houston barely gave up anything to receivers. They gave 6 touchdowns. It could happen, but I think we're going to be picking on them a lot, and I wo60 do it right out of the gate. I think Geno is a great streamer.
Field, you've got 17 quarterbacks that are rostered in more than 60% of leagues.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you there's definitely feels like a movement of we're grabbing some second quarterbacks in some of these leagues.
And that's interesting, too, because a lot of why the rostership numbers are funky is because there's a lot of smaller leagues at ESPN, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of 4, 6, 8-team leagues. So the fact that they're still that high tells you a lot of teams are.
There's a lot of 4-team leagues.
Can you do 4-team leagues? I don't know. Maybe that's too low, but 16.
You
No,
play
you
your
can.
daughters and your
You
wife.
can. No, you can
14
do. Yeah,
leagues.
you can definitely do 4-team leagues. I have a 4-team league where I just test all of our, because I do all the projections, so it has all the categories. Like,
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
I almost invited you
Do you
guys
win
to
that
that
league?
this year and play it out so we can mess with first downs a little bit because we have first down scoring.
Wait, no joke. We need to do that. Maybe,
a 4-team
maybe
league?
between now, we need to do a 4-team league. That would be hilarious.
I got time
that'd
for
be
one more
awesome.
draft.
You'd be winning with your matchup. It's like, 297 to 291
Yeah, you'll
because
have
it's like your starters are literally like Mahomes and healthy Kelce and Justin Jefferson and Austin Eckler.
Yeah, your flex is like a scrub named Garrett Wilson or someone like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
All
how
right, I'm
great
in
would
on
that
this.
be?
14
It'll be on
league.
waivers. Yeah.
All right.
But like we should make it extremely high stakes. Like just something that's like completely like ridiculous.
Fields already in on a back tattoo in case he loses really poor this year. Are you thinking about maybe any tattoo
No,
bets?
I'm not.
No, I'm not. That was very definitive. No, I'm not.
No, I'm not doing that.
Mike likes his marriage.
Yeah, apparently that's how that works. All right, we got one more. Field Yates, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp talking week 1 quarterback rankings. And this is the player that we led into this conversation with, Justin Herbert. We all ranked him coming into this season as a top 10 quarterback, someone that we like season long. But now here, week 1, Field Yates. They draw the Miami Dolphins, and this defense is no joke. They won't have Jalen Ramsey.
That's correct.
But this defense is still no joke with Justin Herbert taking on Miami. Week 1, how are you looking at it?
I've got him as quarterback 11. The Dolphins punched way below their weight last year in terms of personnel. The personnel with Jalen Ramsey obviously would have been much better this year. Mike was talking about how maybe the Rams, maybe what they'll do is just play cover 2 and keep everything in front of them. Vic Fangio is the king of keeping everything in front of him on defense. He just does not allow you to generate big plays in the passing game. He'd rather you sort of manufacture drives than quick strike. So I'm still going to, if I have Justin Herbert as my starting quarterback and I drafted just one quarterback, I'm not going out and adding another player to replace Justin Herbert, but I'm tempering expectations. If there is a slow start to the Justin Herbert, Kellen Moore era in week 1, would not totally surprise me, Mike.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. He actually projects a little bit lower than this. So if you check out the fantasy playbook, which is the whole thing's going to come out on Thursdays this season, you'll actually see Tua in the same game projected a little higher, but I'm ranking Herbert higher because I think Miami has an elite defense. We don't know that for sure. We haven't seen it on the field just yet. So I am hedging a little bit on that for that reason, right? Herbert is going to throw the ball a ton. We know this is going to be an extremely pass-heavy offense. He's going to throw it. There's no Ramsey. Maybe Miami isn't as dominant as we expect them to be. So I am hedging a little bit if I have Herbert. Again, I have him QB 11 as well. I'm going to fire him up. I will say this, though, about Miami. They did allow the second most fantasy points of quarterbacks last year. A lot of that was just a few games.
Lamar early.
Yeah, Lamar early. Josh Allen crushed them.
Yep.
When but Bradley Chubb got there, they had that really bad game against Justin Fields. Remember that huge rushing game.
Yeah.
And then after that, the only 20-point games they allowed the rest of the season were Josh Allen. One of them is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think that they were starting to go the right direction. That young front seven they built up is coming around.
Yeah.
They're going to have a full season of Chubb here. They added Long at linebacker. I'm really confident in that defense. So that's why I'm dropping him. I'm not going to use him in DFS this week unless I'm in a tournament setting. But season long, I think you drafted him to be your starter, and you should roll with him in week 1.
This is that scenario where even though he's outside our quote-unquote top 10, you're still rolling in with him as a starter for week 1. I'm not going to grab someone else to be able to start in place of him. All right, let's talk about some wide receivers here. Mike, Stefon Diggs.
This is all you, Mike, because I was the one that wanted to bring this up for your purposes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stefon
Shadow
Diggs.
report.
Oh,
Hey-o.
why, guys? Come on. Just let me get through the tee up for 1 second.
You didn't get there fast enough.
This
Come on,
week on
man.
the
You wanna
Shadow
sell subs?
Report.
Let's go.
On the Shadow Report, Mike, this week I'm assuming we're going to see Stefon Diggs is getting some kind of a look from Sauce Gardner with his Jets defense. Is that true?
Yeah, so they don't shadow necessarily. They only shadowed twice last year, did the Jets. One of them is actually Reed on Stefon Diggs, not Sauce Gardner last year. It was for part of that game. I don't think they'll shadow in this game. I think they'll play sides. But the Bills really struggled against them last year. As good as Stefon Diggs was last season and Josh Allen was, Josh Allen in those 2 games had 352 passing yards, 1 touchdown through the air, 2 interceptions. Stefon Diggs, 5 catches for 93 yards and 3 catches for 37 yards in the 2 games. Gabe Davis was under 40 yards in both games. No touchdowns across any of those 2 wide receivers in any of the games. So the Jets were dominant last year. Fewest fantasy points to receivers overall, to the perimeter, you name it. They shut down that position. It's going to be a tough start, I think, for this Bills offense. You're still starting Stefon Diggs, obviously.
No, I'm waiting for do I start George Pickens or Stefon Diggs this week? Well, they play the 49ers as a bad example, but you know what I mean? Someone's going to get cute and ask that question.
You'll get that for sure.
You'll start Diggs, and this is Monday night, so we're not worried about DFS at all. Gabe Davis, though, no, it's not. I don't think he's a flex option this week.
Did you see, I think you were the one that asked me about it. Did you see the recent Manningcast little video that they put out?
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. That was so good. Our buddy DJ Gallo wrote that. So shout out to DJ Gallo, who's doing so many good things there. He's a good guy. Love that. All right, let's move on and talk about Calvin Ridley field. We haven't seen him on a football field in any kind of real way in like a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point.
Yeah, so people are wondering, like, how high does he climb in your week 1 rankings?
You can start him,
keep
right?
talking about how, like, there's this wide range of outcomes for Calvin Ridley. On the one hand, he's super talented. He plays with a great quarterback and in a pass-aggressive offense. On the other hand, if you haven't seen him in multiple seasons, and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram are all part of this offense, how much work is there for Calvin Ridley? Well, enough work that I have ranked him as wide receiver 15 for this week, which is in line with where you guys are all at. I think with Calvin Ridley, it's like my calculus is a little bit less scientific than I'm sure Mike's is. It's like, no, like I want the upside of Calvin Ridley in week 1. Yep. And if I get burned by this one after 4 weeks, that sucks. But for now, I am banking on the idea of Calvin Ridley being a rock star in fantasy. Yeah, and that's what I'm going with to begin the season.
Based on all indications from the offseason, it'll have to take an injury, I think. It looks like he's the not the 1A, he's the one. Yep. He's the guy for Trevor Lawrence. Great matchup. I mean, speaking of naming players, name a perimeter corner for the Colts.
Heyo. Yeah, I know.
Kenny Moore is going to start. He's
Bob
good. He's
Sanders
coming off
still there?
Bob Sanders just left recently.
Okay.
Kenny
Moore
mad
about how they treated Jonathan Taylor.
That's what it was.
That's right. That actually checks out. Yeah. They might use him. They might be able to use him this year. But anyway, Kenny Moore will move to inside in nickel. And then Calvin Ridley, we expect to be on the outside with Christian Kirk in the slot. But on the outside, it's going to be a rookie, Julius Brents and Darrell Baker Jr. On the other side, this is a great matchup. Great matchup for Calvin Ridley right out of the gate.
Yeah, the Colts waived one of their 5th-round cornerbacks, Darius Rush, who ended up with the Chiefs. Who, because the Chiefs were the only who were awarded him on waivers, it suggests they were the only team to claim him. So apparently the league had a different view of him than the 5th-round pick would suggest. But
interesting.
Indy not exactly chock full of cornerback depth right now.
No, isn't Minnesota also not chock full of cornerback depth right now?
They are, baby.
And they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. We've been talking about them field. Even yesterday we talked about them. Can this Bucs wide receiving core be what maybe the Seahawks did last year? We were a little bit lower on them in the draft process, but week 1, they look pretty nice for us.
They do. And Chris Godwin, I think, is kind of close to where he'll be ranked in a lot of weeks for me. He's wide receiver 17 on my board. The volume for Chris Godwin is certainly going to be the differentiator between he and Mike Evans. Now, am I a little bit, not worried, but I'm a little bit mindful of the idea that Chris Godwin will become more the player he was prior to Tom Brady being his quarterback, which was not this like basically souped up slot receiver. He did some stuff down the field. He averaged 15.1 yards per catch as a rookie, more vertical than he was these past couple of seasons. I'm mindful of that, but I still think he's established himself as such a valuable part of any offense in that regard that'll have Godwin ranked ahead of Evans most weeks. But Mike Evans, who we've been talking about is closer to wide receiver 30, cracks the top 20 of wide receivers this week because these Minnesota cornerbacks are terrible, Mike. And yes, they have Brian Flores, but this was the best matchup, or close to it last year for opposing wide receivers and quarterbacks. It was an absolute sweet spot.
You're right. Top 2 in catches, yards, and fantasy points allowed to receivers last season, which is bad. So you might think, well, maybe we should clean house a corner. And that's what they did. Their top 4 corners in snaps last year are all gone off the roster. The problem is they didn't really make a strong effort to replace them. And that's where I get stuck. I love Byron Murphy.
Yep.
He's very underrated corner. He's versatile. He can play in the slot. I assume he'll be their nickel corner. We'll see if that's the way it plays out. Chris Godwin, he'll play inside. Mike Evans will be on the outside. But other than him, it's going to be a Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth. They were both drafted last year. They both struggled last season. They played combined under 300 snaps. Yeah. Maybe they could break out. No doubt about it. They could definitely make a leap in year 2.
Yeah, Booth's a talented player, especially.
What's that?
Booth had some legitimate college talent that suggests he's a 2nd-round pick for a reason. Right?
But they didn't do much last year. They're unproven. They're just getting thrown there. We don't know. Yeah. This is a potential smash spot for these 2 Tampa Bay receivers, and that's what we want because there's uncertainty here with the new quarterback and a new scheme. So it's gonna look different for sure, and we like to see a good matchup, not a tough matchup in week 1.
I don't always love the sell high after week 1 conversation. It's one thing if it's like Kevin Ogletree in week 1 all those years ago for the Cowboys, where it's like this will obviously not sustain. Go ahead and sell high. But I wonder, like, if Mike Evans finds the end zone twice on Sunday, I wonder if there will be some of that chatter because the matchup is so juicy for him. Is it going to be that favorable week in and week out? The answer is probably not. And you're really going to trust Baker Mayfield over the course of a full season to make Mike Evans more of a star than he already has been.
You know, it's crazy because and I know we've said this. We said the same thing last year. Are we really going to trust Geno Smith to make DK Metcalf more of a star than whatever? And then we saw some things happen. All I'm saying is NFL is a fickle game. I haven't gotten the script yet. Have you gotten the script? Because I don't know how it plays out.
Came in the mail earlier today.
Came in the mail? Okay, we'll check it out.
I came early, so yeah.
We'll break it down tomorrow. Or?
Of course, you got yours early.
Do that? Okay.
Yeah, I know a guy. So
I'm not here tomorrow, but I'll tune in. I usually don't when I'm not here. But.
Mike, Byron Murphy.
Thanks for the support, jerk.
Was in Arizona, correct?
He was.
Now he left. Byron Murphy?
Yes.
So he was in Arizona, now in Minnesota, who we just talked about.
Yep.
So when we talk about Jahan Dotson potentially taking on these Cardinals, obviously we've got the turf toe issue with Terry McLaurin that we're monitoring, and we feel like this is a pretty nice matchup because this secondary is not all that strong.
So Murphy's gone. Who do they have left?
I cannot.
Go ahead and guess.
Nope.
You're doing terrible at this game today.
You know this one.
Daniel.
Marco Wilson doesn't do anything for you?
I think John
Junior.
Spartan, maybe. Is that a guy?
That's
no. Simon Phoenix?
Definitely a made-up name.
No.
We are doing the cousin of what the NBA and TNT crew does, which, not to ever put ourselves
They're the
anywhere
goats.
close. They are
yes.
the legends.
Yes.
But I absolutely love the segment where it's called Who He Play For, where they just start to name NBA players and Charles Barkley has to guess which team they're
You
on.
did this to me earlier this year.
Love it. Yeah, you're our Charles Barkley.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, it's so great. It's just an absolutely amazing television segment. And I love those guys. I feel like I'm a part of their family, even though I've literally never met them.
There's been a lot of hype about Jahan Dotson, potential second year, but he's got Sam Howell under center. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with Terry McLaurin for week one. In week one, though, how are you looking at Jahan Dotson?
How about if McLaurin does not play? Let's talk about that.
Start there.
Yeah,
Okay.
if he doesn't play, he's a wide receiver 2. Dotson is. If McLaurin plays, he's more of a wide receiver 3, where we have him ranked. I still have McLaurin in my rankings. We're both in the 33 to 36 range. Yep. I believe that assumes McLaurin plays for all of you?
For now, yes.
For now.
Yep.
So we'll probably move him up to the 20s, or mid to late 20s if Terry McLaurin is out. Remember, the final 5 games last season, Dotson had a 21% or more target share in all 5 of them, not an average. That or above, all 5 of those games, was a top 20 receiver. That was with Terry McLaurin as a top 15 receiver during that same span. So they were both delivering together. Dotson in a really good spot, and if McLaurin plays, we expect his targets to be a little bit higher in this game.
Can we play one more game?
Yes.
Name a Raiders cornerback.
I knew you were gonna
Let's
do this.
go, baby, because the next player in our wide receivers conversation is Courtland Sutton.
Yeah,
for the Broncos.
Actually, they're okay, right? They have Marcus
A
Peters and
little
Nate
better.
Hobbs now. I like that. I like that duo.
They kind of pieced it together with the Marcus Peters signing, but still, it's not exactly a loaded secondary and not exactly a loaded defense in Las Vegas. And I don't know
Edge rusher
what the heck is going on with Chandler Jones right now. That was a bizarre situation yesterday that he shared on social media. Wishing the best for him, and just bizarre. Go read about it on your own if you're not currently aware of what took place. But this Las Vegas defense sets up for a good spot for the Broncos offense in week 1, right? And Russell Wilson, a quarterback that I think is higher in our rankings this week than he will be in other weeks. Not super duper high, but
Another
a little
streamer,
higher.
yeah.
So many question marks here, though. Like, I'm so nervous about all of this. I don't know if I can trust Russell Wilson because I didn't see it last year. I don't know how to feel about Javonte Williams. I don't know how to feel about Courtland Sutton. And is Marvin Mims a guy that I want to start with, knowing that there's no Jerry Jeudy as a potential number 2?
How about this? I'm in on Sutton for this week. Let's leave it there.
Yeah,
because that's the one thing I can kind of feel like pretty comfortable. I've got him as wide receiver 25, and Courtland Sutton's a good football player, right? 2 years ago, we were talking about this guy as like a building block for a really good team, no matter where he was. Between injury and then last year's ineffectiveness of the entire offense, the perception of him has changed a lot. But right now, with no Jerry Jeudy, there's little question, at least in my mind, that he is the alpha, the wide receiver 1 in this offense, and in a good matchup. And even if Russell Wilson never becomes a top 5 quarterback again, don't we think of reversion back to like average to above average quarterback play is very much in the cards? If that happens, then you're going to get yourself a good value in Courtland Sutton, who, because of the timing of the Jerry Jeudy injury, if you were an early drafter, you might have gotten Sutton in like round, 10 this year.
11.
Early in the process.
Yep.
So I'm in on Courtland Sutton in a good matchup in week 1.
Yeah, I'm with you. And last year, 2 games against the Raiders. He only scored 2 touchdowns last season.
Both against the Raiders?
One was against the Raiders, and the other game against the Raiders, he hit 80 yards. So he had 2 pretty good games against them. But I also came across this last night. I thought this was interesting. 4 games last year without Jerry Jeudy. He was out for 2. There was one game where he left after 1 snap, and there was another one where he only played 9 snaps. So if we look at those 4 games, Courtland Sutton was featured with a 29% target share. Those 4 games,
that's a
37 targets, was 18 more than any other player on the Broncos, had at least 7 targets, 5 catches, 66 yards, and 12.5 fantasy points. In all those games, Daniel, he was 14th in fantasy points. Those were the games Jeudy didn't play. I think right now we feel like it's unlikely Jeudy plays in week 1. Could be back week 2, maybe week 3. If he doesn't play, Sutton feels like a lineup lock to me, especially after what we saw last season.
So we've got him as a flex play right now, considering that. All right, we got a few more rankings, but first, do you guys smell that?
What is it?
That's the scent of fresh turf and freshly cracked Dr. Pepper, which can only mean one thing. It's college football season, so block off your Saturdays and swipe a sweet Dr. Pepper from the mini fridge, because there's a new season of high kicks, long throws, and Fansville commercial breaks to carry you all the way to the West Coast games. That's right, the fans are back, and this year things are heating up. We're talking more hot takes, more heartbreak, more layers of face paint. Get ready to drink in all the drama this season with the help of the most delicious college football tradition there is, Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. Field Yates, Mike Clay, Daniel Dopp here on Fantasy Focus. Talking week 1 rankings. We're diving into some running backs right now. Yes, Field.
I have a quick question for Mike, because you just referred to Courtland Sutton as a lineup lock. For you, are you referring to wide receivers inside the top 30 as lineup blocks, or is this because you're saying this in a 12-team league? Like, what makes Sutton as wide receiver 27 a lineup block?
Yeah, I think that if you're in a 12-team league, that's 24 plus a flex.
Yep.
And we have him in the mid-20s.
Okay.
Yeah, that would put him in that conversation.
Yep. Should be a lock for your flex is kind of what we're saying there.
Yeah, if you went wide receiver heavy, lineup block.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not the one that said this. Go after Field.
Well,
Please do.
All right,
Actually, you should go after me, Mike, because I just kicked you. I think I have a stress fracture.
Oh, no.
Oh, really? What?
I don't know. I have untied my shoe because I'm in so much pain right now in my foot. I don't know. I'm not very athletic, so it's not like I've been, running through the streets of Bristol.
My steel foot?
Yeah, it might have been.
Is this going to be day to day or week to week right now?
No, I think I'll play on Sunday, but I am no longer a lineup block.
All right. Well,
interesting.
Speaking of playing on Sunday, I think we are going to see Breece Hall on Sunday.
Monday, but yes.
Well, you're right. Monday Night Football. But when we're looking at this backfield, we've obviously talked about all draft season. We expect Dalvin Cook to be the guy at the beginning of the year and Breece Hall to kind of come along towards the end of the season. In week 1, how are you looking at ranking these 2 running backs?
Having a hard time finding room for Breece Hall in my lineup, which is a good way of saying that he might only play like 12 snaps on Monday night.
Yeah.
But I guarantee he'll turn that into like 225 yards.
2 touchdowns.
I just think that the Jets are going to be extremely judicious in a game against a Buffalo defense that we think is good. I think that Dalvin Cook is a better bet to lead this team in total snaps, total carries. Maybe target edge actually goes to Michael Carter, believe it or not, who is still a part of this roster. So I've got Dalvin Cook as running back 29. Breece Hall is running back 39. And we were talking early in the show about how there are certain players where you make an investment in them and you just play them because you feel like it's the appropriate, responsible thing to do. I don't think that's where things are right now with Breece Hall. Early in the season. Yep. I think when you drafted him, you did so with the tacit admission that it might be until week 3 or 4 where you feel really good about playing him, regardless of the matchup.
So here's how I have it projected in the game right now. So if you see the projected point total, this is where the numbers come from. 13 carries. This is Dalvin Cook. 13 carries and 3 to 4 targets.
Okay.
Breece Hall, 7 carries, 2 to 3 targets. And then we'll have a couple touches for Michael Carter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what was the Breece Hall projection?
7 carries and 2 or 3 targets.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so
you're talking like 10 touches, give or take, 9 or 10 touches.
Yeah, and he's very talented. He could turn those into something. But doesn't this have? I'm trying to think if I'm misremembering how things went. So I want people to we acknowledge that J.K. Dobbins last year. Remember he came back and they were like, yeah, he's going to be on a pitch count. He's going to play a limited amount. And then when he came back, he was super ridiculously efficient on that smaller role. That stuff does happen, but we're chasing volume plus ability more often than not. We don't question the ability of Breece Hall at all, but the volume could be very questionable. So I'm with Mike. If I'm playing a Jets running back this week and I have the choice between those two, it is Dalvin Cook.
And color me in the side of, like, I want the Jets to kind of take it slow with Breece Hall. I drafted him so that he can help me towards the back end of my fantasy playoffs, not for week 1 and week 2. I don't want him to re-aggravate anything here. So whatever Jamar Chase was saying about Joe Burrow is the same way that I want the Jets to approach Breece Hall.
Yeah, I think the good news is it's hard, like, because it's an ACL tear, I don't think it's like any sort of aggravation they're worried about. Right. It's probably just like, it's actually other parts of your body. Remember last year, Chris Godwin came back early from the ACL and then immediately pulled his hammy.
Yep.
Yeah. So we did see Hall running 21 miles per hour. Noticed that on Hard Knocks, which is a pretty good sign. That was a couple weeks ago too. So hopefully he's up to speed.
How fast could you run?
8 miles an hour. I don't know. Not fast.
I make that joke every time that I'm going by like one of those digital speed limit.
Well, it's because you're a dad now, Fields.
Yes,
you didn't make those jokes before you were a dad.
Every time, and to my daughters, as if they have any idea what I'm talking about. Like I'm like walking them in a wagon, and I'm like, it registers like 1, and I'm like, don't worry, guys, just being responsible.
Don't worry. That's so funny. All right, let's talk about the aforementioned J.K. Dobbins. Mike, I got some emotional damage from him last year.
Yeah.
Are you ready for me to start him week 1, or are we kind of waiting to see what he looks like in this offense before we're trusting him in our fantasy lineup?
Yeah, let's assume he plays, right?
Yeah, assuming he plays, which looks good. I have him 22nd in my rankings. It sounds like he's going to be the lead back right out of the gate. And this is another one of the things, right? You don't want to get too caught up in defenses. Houston has made some changes defensively, but they have been, check this out, 5th or worse in fantasy points to running backs 4 straight seasons. And the most last year. That's a consistent trend. 4 straight years they have struggled. Maybe they get it turned around this year. The personnel's a little bit different. But I look at the defense, and I don't see a group that I'm too afraid of right now. So I still think it can be considered at least an above-average matchup. If he gets his 13 to 15 carries, maybe more if they're leading in this game, and 2 to 3 targets, he's going to be on that RB2 radar. So yeah, if I have Dobbins, I'm going to start him.
And by the way, I think this is worth noting is that like J.K. Dobbins, when we're discussing where he ranks in terms of like raw talent amongst running backs, I think it's higher than 20th overall, right? So like you're already baking in like a bit of a reduced upside because of the fact that, well, let's ask the man who does the projections. How many targets do you have him projected for?
I think 2 to 3.
-2.
2
yeah,
to 3.
Probably. I think like an 11% target share, which is low for a lead back. It's a concern. They have talked about designing more passes in general under Todd Monken. They're going to throw the ball more and getting him involved in the passing game, but it's just not a tendency.
Feel like every year they say that about J.K. Dobbins.
I agree, and I think they have made an effort, and then he got hurt. Like they've tried a little bit, but it's still Lamar Jackson. We've talked about this a million times. Guys that can make plays with their legs, a quarterback, don't dump it off that often. They scramble, and that's going to limit Dobbins in the passing game.
Yep, totally.
I'm not starting J.K. Dobbins this week.
Really?
Okay.
Tell me why.
You're 27, a little lower.
I don't have the confidence week 1 to be able to see him. All the stuff that I talked about coming out of the preseason. He's never had a 20-touch game. He doesn't catch passes. I think there's going to be more verticality in this offense, and I don't think that verticality is that a word?
Totally.
I like it. I'm on board with
the law of verticality for our fellow NBA junkies out there. Yes, verticality is
we can make up our own words. I think I got yelled at on Twitter the other day for saying like startable or something like that. It was something.
What's the problem with startable?
Maybe that wasn't it, but it was something like that. Someone said it wasn't a word, and I was like, I like it.
You know what? Half the time I think you do.
It was something like that. It wasn't that, but it was.
I'll ask exactly what I feel like.
That's exactly right. I'll make up my own words.
All right, we got one more set of running backs to talk about here.
Yeah, DVOA, ADOT.
That wasn't me.
DVOA. You're talking about DVOA?
DVOA, yeah, buddy.
That's
shout out Aaron Schatz, right?
All right, let's talk about Dolphins running backs. We're not going to have Jeff Wilson for the first 4 games of the season, Field, as he is on IR. That gave some credence to maybe grabbing Raheem Mostert for in your fantasy drafts in case you needed someone for the first couple of weeks. And now here we are, week 1. Are you having Raheem Mostert ranked as a potential RB2 or flex play this week?
Yeah, he sure is for me. I've got him as RB23, and it's not just, so let's just talk about a couple of factors in play here. Jeff Wilson Jr., a guarantee not to play.
Yep.
The team waived Myles Gaskin. The team still has Savon Ahmed and also Devon Achane. Achane avoided a serious injury, but it does sound like there is at least a chance he's unavailable. He's certainly not going to be 100%. This is a good matchup. Now, Mike has just reminded us on a couple of different occasions, 1 year to the next does not always mean the same thing takes place. But what has been an Achilles heel for the Chargers over the past, I don't know, it feels like at least 2 to 3 years. The run defense, right? It's been really, really poor. And Miami, I think, will be able to run the football effectively. Last year when they played, it was the first time that it felt like Tua was kind of solved as a passer. The Chargers feel confident in their ability to neutralize this Miami passing game. Multiply that by the fact that, again, there is not anybody else who seems like a steady bet to steal 12 or 14 carries from Raheem Mostert. Limiting factor is that despite the optimism, I don't see like a 30-touch game for Raheem Mostert, right? And we don't know how involved he'll be in the passing game because they have two of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But if he gets somewhere between 18 and 20 touches, a totally justifiable start as your RB2.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll add two things kind of in support of what you just said, which is the Chargers defense, second most rushing yards led to running backs, both of the Brandon Staley seasons.
Yep.
He's back. It's the same scheme, and they did not address the interior defense line. It's the same group as last year.
Yep.
Same group. Eric Kendricks was an addition at linebacker. Maybe that helps. He's a good run defender, but I don't think it's going to move the needle substantially. On the other hand, however, as good as Raheem Mostert has been as a rusher throughout his career, remember, before Jeff Wilson was acquired last season, he was playing a lot of snaps. He was there clearly back. He was 27th in fantasy points at running back, even with that big role, and probably part of the reason why they went out and acquired a better running mate for him. Chase Edmonds, he moved on from. They brought in Jeff Wilson, and Wilson immediately became essentially the 1A in that offense. So I'm not quite as high. I'm a little lower. I think he's a borderline flex option. Certainly upgraded him, though, with Jeff Wilson on IR.
I like Raheem Mostert this week if you're looking for somebody, especially, and I said this during draft season, if you went out and drafted a guy like Alvin Kamara, perfect running back that you had an opportunity now to grab really late, low draft investment that you could start in one of your first couple weeks if you need that. That's really our week one rankings conversation, guys. We're going to have so many more things to talk about. Obviously, we've got a football game tomorrow, so we're going to dive into that as well. Football. Some more information. But, this was a ton of fun. I can't believe, in all honesty, that we've got football. I've been waiting. It feels like I've been waiting, and now it's actually here tomorrow. It almost doesn't feel real. You guys want to come over and watch the game?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
you're not going to come over and watch the field. Are you going to bring the whole family? Don't tell me yes.
No. Yeah, fine. Well, why not? The kids go to bed at 11:30 these days anyways. Who cares, right?
You live far away. You're too far away. I'm not coming.
I do live on the other side of the world.
You live in Rhode Island. Yeah.
That's not fair. You used to basically live in Rhode Island.
No, I used to live in Massachusetts, which was, I guess, basically.
You moved closer.
Basically.
Yeah, you
smart.
did. Yeah. That's true. All right.
If anybody has crutches I can borrow, because I'm concerned about getting out of the studio right now.
No, yeah, we're going to have to
use that as a stretcher.
Dude, I can be like Byron Leftwich, your Marshall
let's
boy,
go.
right? You guys can be my offensive lineman. I'll will us to victory.
The second best quarterback ever for Marshall.
Wow. Okay. Disrespect.
Chad.
Yeah.
V. Pennington.
Chad Pennington.
One of them was a first-round pick. One of them was not.
Wow.
Hey. Don't disrespect Chad Pennington.
When you're done with this show, check out the Squirrel Report on the NFL and ESPN YouTube page. We got a new one coming out later this week. It's going to be a ton of fun. That's going to do it for today. We're going to break down a Thursday night preview tomorrow between the Lions and Chiefs with a bunch more fun stuff for you guys. We love you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. You have earned it. We can't wait to see you tomorrow. One more day until football.
Football!
Anything, Mike?
Nope.
Oh. You are electric, huh?
I'm in the zone already.
Wet
It's time to
blanket.
Yeah. I'm just getting to the analysis. I want them snap counts.